AD, what camera I'm looking at? This one? If I'm talking to AD right now, bro, get lost. Go to Hawaii somewhere, straight up and down. When you come into camp better in shape than anybody and everybody. That's what you should be focused on. You should go for the MVP for the 2022-23 season. All Celtics fans gonna hate me for saying that, but I'm your OG, and that's what I think. Feel me?
Heading into the 2015 NBA season, Anthony Davis received a whopping 86% of votes in the annual GM poll for the question of what NBA player would you like to start your franchise with. Fast forward to this past season, after a few injuries, a forced exit from NOLA, and a ring in LA, and that number has dropped to, well, also receiving votes. As we approach the next NBA season, Anthony Davis has the opportunity to finally prove if he can take that torch from LeBron, or if he just doesn't have what it takes to be the best player on a finals team. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the vid. My name's Justin, and this is Underdog Sports. Contextualizing a player like Anthony Davis can be pretty hard. Coming into the video, you may think I'm making him out to be some role-specific B-grade type player. I can assure you that is not the case. Instead, as many great players are, Davis has become a victim of his own success and potential. A 6'10 big man with handles like a guard and defense better than most centers is a match made in heaven with any talent scout in the NBA, which explains why he went first overall in his respective draft. Although, Davis's intangibles haven't translated as well as it seemed it would. Shifting the focus off narratives for a second, let's provide that context. AD has averaged 24, 10, and 2 in his 9-year career, spending his time with the Pelicans and the Lakers. He's an 8-time All-Star, has 4 of each All-NBA first and defensive teams, and of course an NBA champion with the Lakers in 2020. Now, let's trace Davis's career arc back to the root to see not only the validity of the claims that AD has fallen off, but also what got him to the top of the mountain in the first place. Davis formed his roots in South Chicago, a city known for sculpting hoop greats like Isaiah Thomas, D. Rose, and Dwayne Wade, just to name a few. Among his community, AD was known as the little guy who shoots threes for his prospective's charter high school team, believe it or not. Even as he grew to 6'3" in his sophomore year of high school, Davis got no looks from college scouts, let alone any offers. However, a jaw-dropping 7-inch growth spurt was waiting around the corner for AD throughout his final 2 years of high school ball. You may have heard the term combo guard, right? Someone who can perform in both phases in the offense as a guard with playmaking and scoring. Now imagine the ultimate combo player, but instead of combining the aforementioned skills, you combine just overall guard skills, meaning dribbling, shooting, passing, and coordination, with the skills of a big man, rebounding, defending, back-to-basket scoring, and footwork. Sounds like you just created the next GOAT, right? Well, that's what most scouts thought too, as Davis sprung up scouting charts and soon became the top recruit in America. With the new wave of admiration by college scouts, AD got to choose from the cream of the crop on where he wanted to take his talents for collegiate play. A shocker to some, he would choose to join Coach Calipari and the Kentucky Wildcats for the upcoming 2011-12 college season. Before AD even stepped on the hardwood in the white and blue, most had him pegged for the top pick in the 2012 NBA draft. A year averaging 14-10, a 38-2 record, a Final Four Most Outstanding Player award, and an NCAA championship later, those predictors would turn out to be right. NBA scouts marveled at AD's versatility. He could be an A-tier shot blocker while guarding the opposition's best perimeter player, or the ability to face up to the basket and shoot threes, while also having the ability to put a double move on his defender and drive to the rim. That kind of thing. Before we touch on his time with his soon-to-be suitor in New Orleans, I'd be remiss if I did not talk about the unibrow. As a kid, my friends and I would poke fun at the star big man's extra long and bushy eyebrow, but in hindsight, this unique feature made him hugely marketable and distinguishable, which allowed him to appeal to the casual fan. On a personal note, I find it cool that AD was comfortable enough in his own skin to wear his unibrow like a trophy. He definitely may be the most popular public figure with a unibrow, but I'm just spitballing here. Back to the topic at hand. On June 28, 2012, the Hornets, now named the Pelicans, selected the 19-year-old with the first overall pick, in a class with future stars like Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, and Draymond Green. In this next section, we'll be touching on both the highs and the lows of the future NBA stars' time in Louisiana. Davis's first year wasn't as easy as imagined. The big man was hampered with injuries throughout the season, but still managed to play 65 games and average 13.5 points, earning a spot on the NBA All-Rookie First Team. The 2013-14 NBA season saw AD earn a spot on his first All-Star team while averaging 21, 10, and 2. The season was highlighted by AD's 40 and 20 game versus the Celtics, becoming the first player on the newly named Pelicans to do so. Then, 2014 would hold another step for AD in the Pelicans as he led the team to the playoffs with an average of 24, 10, and 2. At this time, it was becoming very apparent that AD could almost put up 20 and 10 in his sleep, and he was every bit of the real deal scouts thought he would be. Unfortunately for the young team, they would go against the Warriors at the start of their soon-to-be dynasty. As a Warriors fan, that 4-point play has been a fond memory for years now, which capped off the sweep of the young Pelicans team. As New Orleans hosted the All-Star game in 2016-17, Davis would add to his list of records with a 52-point outing in the star-studded matchup, shattering Wilt Chamberlain's former record of 42 in 1962. At this point, Davis has had 5 All-Star appearances in just 6 years, 2 All-NBA first teams, an All-NBA defensive second team selection, and has been the NBA block leader for 2 consecutive years in 2014 and 15. It's clear to see why he dominated the GM polls on who they would want to start a franchise with. At the time, many thought we were witnessing the second coming of a Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan type Hall of Fame caliber player. After missing the playoffs in both 2016 and 2017, AD and the Pelicans would return to the big stage in a matchup with the Portland Trail Blazers. Also important to note, the Pelicans had recently acquired All-Star teammate DeMarcus Cousins in order to make a deeper run into the playoffs. I know it may seem so far away in the present, but at the time, Boogie was a dog on the court. He definitely had his struggles defensively, but his playmaking and scoring largely made up for that, especially considering the defensive presence of AD, who would go on to earn an All-NBA defensive first team selection that year. Back to their first round matchup, Dame and CJ were a very competitive backcourt then and still were a legitimate option for the Western Conference Finals. Although, the combination of Davis and Drew Holiday proved to be far too much for the Blazers squad as they finished them in just 4 short games. However, Davis and the Pels would soon have to revisit a familiar foe in the Warriors in order to progress further into the playoffs. And unfortunately for New Orleans, we know how this one goes, with a gentleman's sweep at the hands of the Death lineup. What's more impressive is that AD had made this run without Cousins as he tore his left Achilles tendon in a January matchup versus the Rockets. Even so, AD and the Pelicans fanbase continued to grow more and more frustrated with the team's shortcomings heading into the 2018-19 season. This season was tumultuous to say the least, as vague and sometimes blatant tampering on LeBron and the Lakers side, and a little from AD's too, resulted in a mountainous trade to send the star big man to LA. While expectations were through the roof for the dyad, it's fair to say AD's highest highs and lowest lows were still ahead of him in the City of Stars. The idea for the 2019-20 Lakers was that AD would largely dominate the defensive needs of the team while LeBron shouldered the team's offensive responsibility. A lot of pressure was on AD at the time as allegations crept up that he wasn't good enough to be the best player on a finals contender, which, in all fairness, we do not know is true or not even now. Thankfully, he had a teammate with the clear capability of being the best player on the finals team, and with, in retrospect, a fantastically organized team with combinations of perimeter defense, outside shooting, and playmaking, LA knew they had a chance at championship contention. The Lakers were having a great season even before the pandemic would close the NBA's doors for months, as they finished the shortened season with a 49-14 record. With the tragic events of Kobe Bryant's passing, may he rest in peace, the Lakers were primed to do whatever it takes to leave Orlando with ring number 17. Now, I know the NBA bubble gets discredited a ton in NBA conversations. Now, with that being said, there is no doubt in my mind that the Lakers would have won this ring either way. Regardless of narrative, the bubble played out like LA was destined to win this ring. AD's stats in the bubble were an amazing 26-9-4, highlighted by the game winner against the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals, and an average of 25-11-3 in the finals matchup versus the Heat. As Laker Nation was on top of the world, it became clearer and clearer for them that the team's succession was already laid out. As the undefeated father time crept closer to Braun, The ease of passing the torch to the brow to be the number one option and the best player on the team seemed too easy to give up. Again, it seemed as if the future success for the Lakers was already written. Well, the Lakers' 2020-21 season was largely plagued with injuries. AD played only 36 games with an average of 22-8-3, notably down from the previous years. And with LA coming off the shortest offseason in NBA history, fatigue proved to be too much as they finished with just the 7th seed in the West with a 42-30 record. This was also the first NBA season that included the play-in tournament as they matched up with the 8-seeded Warriors. This one stung, seeing Bron drop in that 3 around the same spot Kyrie knocked it down during the finals, both against Steph too. Although, the matchup versus the 2nd-seeded Suns proved to be too much for the exhausted and injury-riddled Lakers team. AD went out with a groin injury in Game 4, but honestly, the Suns might have come out with this one even if Davis was healthy, which I know is blasphemy to Laker fans. That brings us to the most recent NBA season, the current narrative surrounding the NBA star big man. So let's get into AD's current struggles with solidifying his legacy in the NBA, even as his top 75 player and NBA champion. Heading into the 2021-22 season, the NBA's 75th season to be exact, expectations were again through the roof for LeBron, Davis, and the Lakers. After a disappointing finish last season and foundational changes to the team, with the losses of Kyle Kuzma, KCP, Alex Caruso, and more in favor of the acquisition of 9-time All-Star Russell Westbrook, many questioned the team's true chances at returning to the NBA Finals. But the Lakers' stars assured fans it would work. And whether you want to attribute the team's struggles to injuries, chemistry, or whatever else, it simply did not work out. AD returned to play just 4 more games than his previous injury-riddled season, with a disappointing 40 games averaging 23, 10, and 3. The most troubling part of the season for AD turned out to not even be his health. Instead, who was once a knockdown shooter as far as big men go, had dropped to a staggering 18.6% from 3 and 70% from the free throw line, both of which had been steadily declining since his arrival to the team. The Lakers finished the season with a disappointing record of 33-49, finishing as the 11th seed in the West, even missing out on the play-in tournament. This called for a real conversation to be had around AD's game and progression as an NBA star. That succession plan I previously mentioned that called for AD taking the torch from Bron as the best players on a Lakers championship team, it seemed like a faraway dream now. While LeBron also missed copious amounts of time during the season, much of that was expected from the fanbase as the King continues to age near his 40s. What was not expected was the statistical and physical decline of Davis, and many began to question his work ethic and dedication to the game. Fair or not, it didn't help that AD had begun to stream video games semi-regularly and seemed to be putting in off-season work less and less. It's my estimation that as it grew more and more evident that AD could put up 20 and 10 in his sleep, he grew complacent in putting work in due to that notion. His off-season remarks of, quote, not touching a basketball in months, did anything to help his case to the NBA and Laker fans. And as the saying goes, whenever you aren't putting in work, someone else is. Thus, it appears now that the NBA has caught up to AD's freakish athleticism and ability on both sides of the ball. The upcoming season is as much of a make or break, boom or bust year for an NBA star as I can remember. Davis and the Lakers have publicized his off-the-court work with shooting coaches, which promptly happened after the negative backlash towards his not touching a basketball in months comment, and his self-proclaimed wrist injury that seemingly explained away his shooting woes. If AD and the Lakers perform well enough to make a deep run into the playoffs, especially if Davis is performing the best on the team, we could see this narrative subside completely in favor of hopeful Laker fans. Although, if Davis's downward trend continues, we may be witnessing one of the most blatant cases of wasted talent in NBA history. After going through Anthony Davis's complete career arc, what do you think about it? Do you think AD's decline has been overblown as a clear case of bad injury luck? Or maybe, do you think the star big man has neglected the grind in recent years, leading to increased injuries and a decline in play? Let me know down below, leave a like if you enjoyed the vid, and subscribe if you want to see more sports content from me. This video has been made by Underdog. Peace.